For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Israeli attacks from land, sea, and air in Gaza have killed 89 people in the last 24 hours, according to Gaza's health ministry. Forces ramped up attacks in north and central Gaza after pulling out of Khan Yunis, which returning Palestinians now say is unrecognizable. The United Nations spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says UN teams are raising concerns of the utter devastation there.
Our team reported widespread destruction. Every building they visited, and most of those they were able to see had been damaged, and paved roads had been reduced to dirt tracks. The street and public spaces in Khan Yunis are littered with unexploded ordnance, posing severe risks to civilians, especially for children. And the team found unexploded 1,000-pound bomb lying on the main intersection and inside schools.
UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric. House Republicans today voted to advance a bill to reauthorize the national security surveillance program that includes warrantless spying on Americans. The second attempt comes just days after a conservative revolt prevented similar legislation from reaching the floor. Speaker Mike Johnson brought forward a Plan B that, if passed, would reform and extend a section of FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, known as Section 702, for a shortened period of 2 years instead of 5 years, in hopes the shorter timeline would be enough to sway GOP critics to clear the path for passage before the April 19th deadline, when FISA will expire. A provision ending warrantless surveillance of Americans will also be offered, potentially jeopardizing final passage of the bill, but MAGA Republicans and the Congressional Progressive Caucus are joining forces in supporting ending warrantless surveillance of Americans. President Joe Biden met with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for a first-of-its-kind White House summit Thursday, where they announced a joint patrol by their coast guards in the Indo-Pacific this year against China's military assertiveness in the region. Max Pringle reports.
Biden gave the Japanese and Filipino leaders his assurances that the U.S. would stand with its allies in the face of China's increasing assertiveness in the region and other security threats like the North Korean nuclear program.
The United States defense commitments to Japan and to the Philippines are ironclad. They're ironclad. As I've said before, any attack on Philippine aircraft, vessels, or armed forces in the South China Sea would invoke our mutual defense treaty.
The U.S. and the Philippines have a mutual pact that's been in place for 70 years. There have been skirmishes between the Philippine and Chinese coast guards in the South China Sea in recent months over disputed areas. The historic trilateral summit was not without its critics. Jean de la Cruz with the activist group Bayon told a rally in D.C. against the summit President Marcos's family have yet to fully account for the abuses of his father Ferdinand Marcos Sr.'s dictatorship.
As survivors of martial law, we demand that the Marcos family pay for their crimes and the money be returned to the Filipino people for social services, education, housing, and health care.
President Biden also announced a new economic corridor that would help develop clean energy, port, agriculture, and other projects in the country. I'm Max Pringle.
The Biden administration is canceling student loans for another 206,000 borrowers as part of a new repayment plan that offers a faster route to forgiveness. The Education Department announced the latest round of cancellations today. More people are becoming eligible for student loan cancellation as they hit 10 years of repayments, as opposed to the 20-year requirement that borrowers faced in the past. Casting a shadow are two new lawsuits challenging whether the Biden administration has authority to speed up cancellation. The wife of Julian Assange says her husband's legal case could be moving in the right direction after President Joe Biden confirmed the U.S. may drop charges against imprisoned WikiLeaks founder, who faces life in prison on espionage charges for publishing classified U.S. government documents that in part show potential war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Her comments Thursday came as Assange's supporters supporters rallied in several cities demanding his release and marking his 5-year anniversary in London's high-security Belmarsh prison, where he's fighting extradition to the U.S. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also welcomed the comments from President Biden.
Well, this is an encouraging statement from President Biden. I believe this must be brought to a conclusion, and that Mr. Assange has already paid a significant price, and enough is enough. There's nothing to be gained by Mr. Assange's continued incarceration, in my very strong view, and I put that as the view of the Australian government.
Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. I'm Christina Onestad reporting for Pacifica Radio.